Alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salam ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam amma ba'da habatu fillah. Excellent question was asked. Assalamu alaikum akhi kareem. What is meant by memorizing books of the scholars like Usul al-Thalatha, the 10 nullifiers? Is the goal to memorize it nearly word by word as written by the author, or is it sufficient to read and understand it without memorizing it where the author placed things? And would you advise one to start memorizing hadith with zero understanding of the Arabic language? Barakallah fika. Fantastic question. And we'll do our best to try to bring some beneficial advice, bidnillah ta'ala. So, what is meant by memorizing the book of the scholars like Usul al-Thalatha and the 10 nullifiers of the Nawaqid al-Islam? First and foremost, just as a clarification, not necessarily for this questioner, but just for especially sometimes Sufis and Shia and others come on my page and then they believe that that for Salafis the deen is restricted to the books of Muhammad ibn al-Wahhab. As you see behind me, that's not the case. That we have books going all the way back to probably the second century Islam, especially second century scholars and the collections in tafsir and aqidah and all the sciences that were developing and developed at those particular times and ages. So Ahl Sunnah doesn't restrict themselves first and foremost to those books like Usul al-Thalatha and Qawaid al-Arba or the nullifiers of faith. But what is beneficial about those books is because they're written closer to our time and they are written with a style that resembles the Salaf in the way that some of the books like Kitab al-Tawheed, the Sheikh mentions, ayat, hadith, and then aqwal of the Salaf to substantiate his position or to, as far as for the title chapters or the masail or the issues that are being studied. So there's a very clear organization. Another point with regards to his books, and especially the books like Qawaid al-Arba, Usul al-Thalatha, Usul al-Sitta, those books also were written in order that they would make it easy upon the reader to memorize. And that's why Usul al-Thalatha, Thalatha, the three foundations or three fundamentals. And that makes it easy for you. In your head, you already know, okay, three fundamentals. And then he brings the evidence. Why is he saying there's three and not 4 or 7 fundamentals? And what does he mean by those 3 fundamentals? So then he breaks that down and in talking about that those 3 fundamentals are centered around the 3 questions coming from a text, coming from a nas, coming from the nusus, which indicate that the main questions in the grave will be pertinent to those aspects of the deen. Man rabbuk, ma dinak, man nabiyak. Who is your Lord, who is your prophet, and what is your religion? So then that whole text is helping you. If you memorize that, then that means you have a lot of evidence with regards to those masail. So then if someone asks you, well, what is ibadah? Why do you Salafis or why does Ahl Sunnah always say ibadah when us Sufis, we say that ibadah, is just, just humbleness before our creator, or something like this. Why do you say there's so many different types of ibadah? What do you mean? And so then the masail, they come up in there. Oh, al-ibadah, as Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah says, كل ما يحبه الله ويرضاه من أقوال وأفعال الظاهر والباطن. So it's everything. Al-ibadah, worship, is a ism jami' لكل ما يحبه الله ويرضاه. It's a comprehensive term which refers to everything that Allah loves and is pleased with from those things which are internal and external forms of ibadah. Well, that gives those people who memorize just that statement of Shaykh al-Islam that his comprehensive definition of ibadah, that gives you a working definition for you as far as your practice and understanding of the term of ibadah, of worship, what it means in Islam, and then you can see, well, what goes against that term. And his term is backed up by nusus. So the point with studying the text as another point of these texts is also they give you the masail. They give you the masail, so they give you important masail. For example, if you study a fiqh text, whether it be Hanafi, Maliki or Shafi'i, or Hanbali, one of those, the four madhahib, or other than them, then if you memorize, then you have the strength of those masail. That if you've memorized even one text in fiqh, then you have memorized many of the masail, the issues in the deen. And if you memorize a book like Umdat Ahkam or Bulugh al-Maram, then that means you have evidence, because those books were written as, or are collected and compiled, as hadith collections that give you the evidence for the ahkam, for the rulings. So that means if you memorize Bulugh al-Maram, for example, or if you get less than that, which would be less hadith, which would be Umdat Ahkam, then that means you have evidence for all the major masail in fiqh, in the religion. The main thing, you have fiqh ibadat, and when you have fiqh mu'amalat, you have fiqh pertaining to worship. So if someone asks you, what's the evidence for how do I know ma is pure? Well, the Prophet ﷺ said that ma innama ma tuhur, that ma is pure, and وَلَا يَنْجِسُهُ شَيْءٍ, and nothing makes it impure. So when you have those masail, how do you know that if you don't make a complete wudu, or that you need to make wudu? Just even the evidence. How do you know you need to make wudu when you pass gas? The Prophet ﷺ said, Wallah musta'an, I've forgotten, that whoever makes hadith and that there's no salat for the one who makes hadith, that you have to make wudu. And I've totally forgotten the nas right now. Wallahu musta'an. And that's the point of memorizing and muraja and keeping up with those, that you have to go back to those texts, because you will forget. You will forget. And ilm yahtaj ijtihad, it takes striving, and you will forget. And so this is the point of memorizing those texts. Those texts, they give you those evidence. So that was pertaining to fiqh. Likewise with aqidah, if you want to know. If someone asks me about what tawakkul, I can give them a ta'rif that I've learned from the ulama. Tawakkul huwa i'timad Allah wa fi'l asbab. That tawakkul, relying or trusting in Allah, it is making an effort, is putting your trust, making an effort to achieve whatever you're trying to achieve, and putting your trust solely with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is the benefit of memorizing those texts. And if not, as Imam Sa'di mentions, that by kathrata qira'ah, it's almost, those masail, they become with you. That you'll have a good ma'rifah of the text. You'll know the text and it'll be almost as you've memorized. Another point in your question, which was very beneficial, you said, is the goal to memorize it nearly word by word as written by the author, or is it sufficient to read and understand it without memorizing it, where the author placed things? The goal, the point is not to memorize the author's text word for word. The point is to understand and practice. So that's the most important point. The other thing, the memorization will help you retain that knowledge and help you have dhabt, precision with it and in your practice, so that it comes to light. And as we said, ma tuhur, and I have to mention the hadith because now I remember the one of the hadith. سئل النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم سئل النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم عن الماء فقال سئل رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم عن الماء فقال الرجل إن نركب البحر ونحمل معنا قليل من الماء فإن توضأنا به عطشنا فنتوضأ من ماء البحر. So a man, he came to the Prophet ﷺ and he asked, he said, verily we travel on the water, we travel in the sea. إِنَّ نَرْكَبُ الْبَحْرَ وَنَحْمُلُ مَعَنَا قَلِيلٍ مِنَ الْمَاءِ. And we take very little water as provisions. And if we make wudu, we become thirsty. أَفَنَتَوَدَّؤُ مِنْ مَاءِ الْبَحْرِ. Can we make wudu from the seawater? How do you know you can make water from the wudu from the seawater? Well, this hadith is one of the main hadith which lets you know. And then of course from Quranic text that the وَأَنزَلَ مِنَ السَّمَاءِ مَاءً لِيُطَهِّرَكُمْ بِهِ. That Allah sent from the skies or the heavens water so that you can purify yourself. So we know rainwater and we know water in its natural form. But from this hadith, it gives you the evidence that the water is pure, and it gives you evidence because the Prophet ﷺ said in the hadith that إِنَّ الْمَاءَ طُهُورٌ وَحِلُّ مَيْتَتُهُ إِنَّ الْبَحْرَ طُهُورٌ وَحِلُّ مَيْتَتُهُ وَكَمَا قَالَ النَّبِي صلى الله عليه وسلم. That the sea is pure, or the seawater is pure, and that that which is in it that dies, meaning those creatures, sea creatures, are permissible even if they're dead. So if you get dead fish, it's halal for you to eat it. So that gives you fiqh fi din. It gives you some fiqh, because when you have the nus, where does your evidence come? Where does your deen come from? It comes from kitabillah wa sunnat Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So the person who's memorized kitabillah and the sunnah of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, or whatever they can of it, they have stronger textual evidence in their head, and they are able to articulate the masail without just saying, well, there's a hadith that means, there's an ayat that means, because they can give you the nas. And bi'idhnillah, if Allah has favored them with fiqh fi din, then they can give you the understanding of that. Because it's not just about memorizing. That's why it's a point of both. Both have their important purpose points, or they're both incredibly important. But more important is understanding the text and understanding the deen and practicing. And the last point, would you advise to start with memorizing hadith with zero standing in the Arabic language? A lot of the hadith that I still remember now come from when I didn't really know much Arabic. I was struggling. I was in the beginning of my studies. And I still have them how many years later? Hadith iftiraq, hadith, many ahadith about water, about many issues in the deen. They come from struggling to memorize. That helps you in your reading, for one. Number two, it gives you nusus, which you keep with you, bi'idhnillah. And, all of this that's a part of your Arabic studies. And your Arabic studies is a wasila. It's a means for your religious studies. So that is the point. And I hope that's clear, and there's too much more to say, but no doubt that's sufficient. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive us of our many shortcomings. Wa sallallahu wa sallam ala nabiyyina Muhammad.